Welcome to Spiritual Healing Coach. Today we begin our countdown with sign number 5. They rewrite your reality. One of the clearest signs of spiritual gaslighting is when a pastor, leader, or church community starts quietly reshaping your experiences. You bring forward something painful or confusing, and instead of being heard, you're met with responses like, "That never happened." "You misunderstood." "You're too emotional." A godly woman wouldn't question that. This isn't spiritual guidance, it's psychological control disguised as holiness. Gaslighters depend on confusion, and over time, these repeated dismissals begin to affect you. You start second-guessing your memory, then your instincts, and eventually, your worth. You shrink your voice because it feels safer. You apologize for things that were never wrong. And here's an important question to pause and ask yourself. When did you stop trusting your own experience, and who taught you to do that? That moment often reveals the truth. Rewriting your reality isn't correction, it's conditioning. It's a tactic used in many abusive churches to keep women compliant, quiet, and disconnected from their own discernment. But hear this with your whole heart. God does not gaslight his daughters. Jesus never dismissed a woman's pain or told her she imagined her suffering. He validated what she felt and restored her dignity. If someone continually twists or denies your lived experience, the issue is not your perception. It's their misuse of power. Let's continue. Now, on to number 4. Sign number 4. They use God to silence you. A major red flag of spiritual gaslighting is when scripture, or the idea of God's will, is used to shut down your voice. Instead of honest, compassionate dialogue, you're met with phrases like, "touch, not God's anointed." If you question leadership, you're questioning God. A godly woman wouldn't challenge this. "God told me you're wrong." This isn't spiritual wisdom. It's control disguised as reverence. When someone claims divine authority to override your thoughts, boundaries, or concerns, they step into a place no human is meant to stand. They position themselves as the voice of God in your life, leaving you afraid to trust your own discernment. Here's the contrast that matters. True spiritual leadership creates safety, inviting dialogue. Abusive leadership creates silence, demanding submission. And after enough time in that environment, confusion sets in. You start thinking your discomfort equals disobedience. You worry that your questions mean you lack faith. You fear God is disappointed in you for simply wanting clarity or dignity. But listen closely. God is not intimidated by your voice. Jesus never silenced women. He welcomed their honesty. He defended them publicly. He honored their courage. If someone uses God as a weapon to keep you quiet, the problem is not your spirituality. It's their misuse of sacred authority. Let's keep moving deeper. Now on to number 3. Sign number 3. They make you the problem instead of their behavior. Another unmistakable sign of spiritual gaslighting is blame shifting. Instead of taking responsibility for hurtful actions, unhealthy leaders turn everything back onto you. You bring up a concern or boundary, and suddenly the conversation becomes, "You're being divisive. You're too emotional. You're overreacting." If you were more submissive, this wouldn't be an issue. Notice the pattern? Your feelings become the problem, your observation becomes the offense, your need for respect becomes a spiritual flaw. This tactic serves one purpose, protecting their image. When someone refuses to acknowledge harm, they must redirect the spotlight, and in many churches, women become the easiest targets, labeled rebellious, dramatic, or lacking faith simply because they named the truth. Over time, this repeated blame shifting creates a painful internal conflict. You start wondering, am I the difficult one? Am I too sensitive? Maybe if I tried harder, prayed harder, submitted harder, things would get better. But here's the reality. Healthy leadership welcomes accountability. Abusive leadership avoids it at all costs. Jesus never shamed women for seeking clarity, safety, or fairness. In fact, he confronted the people who twisted truth to protect themselves. If you are constantly made to feel like the problem, even when you're addressing legitimate concerns, you're not experiencing biblical correction. You're experiencing manipulation designed to silence and control you. Let's keep going. This next sign reveals what happens when you try to protect your peace. Now, on to number 2. Sign number 2, they attack your boundaries. One of the clearest signs you're dealing with spiritual gaslighting is what happens the moment you set a boundary. Healthy people respect boundaries. Abusive systems punish them. It often sounds like, "Why are you distancing yourself? You're not committed to the church anymore." This attitude shows a lack of spiritual maturity. If you were truly obedient, you wouldn't need boundaries. Behind these statements is a simple truth. Boundaries threaten their control. When you step back, ask questions, or say, "No," gaslighters lose the ability to shape your reality. So they react, sometimes with guilt, sometimes with spiritual language, sometimes with pressure from multiple members, anything to get you back in line. The impact is deeply emotional. You may feel guilty for taking space. You may second-guess your need for rest, clarity, or protection. You may fear disappointing God simply because you're choosing what is healthy. But boundaries are not selfish. They are spiritual wisdom. Even Jesus stepped away from the crowds, withdrew from pressure, and refused demands placed on him. He protected his peace without apology. When a church or leader interprets your boundaries as rebellion rather than self-care, you're not seeing spiritual discernment. You're seeing control dressed in holiness. And the harder they push against your boundaries, the more clearly you can see the truth of their intentions. You've made it this far through the countdown. Now let's talk about the most important sign of all, the one your heart has likely felt long before your mind could name it. Now, on to number 1. Sign number 1, you feel fear instead of love. At the heart of spiritual gaslighting is this painful truth. Your church makes you feel afraid, small, or unworthy, far more than it makes you feel loved. You may notice a constant heaviness in your chest before walking into the building. You may feel pressure to perform, obey, or please. You may worry that one wrong move will bring shame, correction, or gossip. You may feel God is watching you with disappointment instead of compassion. That emotional atmosphere is not accidental. Fear is one of the strongest tools of control. Abusive systems use it intentionally through sermons about punishment, through leaders who monitor behavior, through communities where women are judged more harshly than helped. Over time, fear becomes the lens you see God through. You pray with anxiety instead of trust. You question yourself instead of finding peace. But here's the truth you deserve to reclaim. Love brings freedom. Fear brings captivity. And God is not the author of captivity. When Jesus met women, they felt seen. They felt valued. They felt safe. His presence brought dignity, not dread. Healing, not humiliation. Hope, not fear. If your church experience leaves you constantly anxious, ashamed, or spiritually exhausted, that is not a reflection of your worth or your faith. It is a reflection of their misuse of power. And naming this truth is the beginning of healing. We've now counted down all 5 signs. Let's take a moment to pull it all together in a gentle closing message. Now, on to the conclusion. As we finish this countdown, I want to leave you with one simple truth. What you felt was real, and what you needed was valid. If any of these signs touched your heart, please know you're not alone. Spiritual gaslighting doesn't mean you were weak or lacking faith. It means someone misused their power. Your questions, your boundaries, and your instincts were signs of strength, not rebellion. Healthy faith brings peace, not fear. Healthy leadership creates safety, not silence. And you deserve a spiritual space that honors your voice and your worth. If this video gave you clarity or comfort, I'm grateful you're here. If this message spoke to your heart today, and you want to support a space where women can heal and feel seen, you can visit ko-fi.com/spiritualhealingcoach. Your support helps us keep creating gentle, empowering content for women just like you.